Great. I had to unmute myself because, of course, the second you're going to get start, the truck is backing up with the backup horn going in the street behind you. But thank you for being here. I'm going to put in the chat one more time the link to the Jamboard that's up on the screen. And if you just take a minute or two to add your thoughts to the Jamboard, what comes to mind when you think about student choice? If it's something that's beneficial, use a pink sticky note to add your thought to the Jamboard. If it's something that comes to your mind that you think is a challenge, use a yellow sticky note to add your thoughts to the Jamboard. And if it's something that you see as a potential, add it on a green sticky note. I'll give you just a moment to capture your thoughts. Thanks for sharing those thoughts, and feel free to continue adding and incorporating them as we go on through the day. You're right, this is thinking about choices, thinking about a mind shift, and we can see the benefits of doing so, and we know what that makes in terms of the learning experience, yet sometimes just wrapping our minds around it and thinking through all of the logistics is quite a challenge. And so we're going to look at some of that today and think about what choice has to do through 4 different lenses. And you'll see images of paths throughout the presentation, and I just really enjoy the fact that they represent both the divergent and the convergent nature of choice, that choice can set individuals on their own path, yet it also can connect individuals through interests, passions, and really join them together. And so as we go throughout our session today, I want to leverage the collective experience of this group to generate ideas around the role of choice through 4 specific lenses, and then take away at least a personal action step or idea that you can incorporate into your classes with your learners. You'll be making some personal choices today. So as I briefly introduce the 4 lenses that we're going to look through, think about which of those 4 lenses you personally would like to explore today as you're given some choice. So the first lens that we're going to look through is, what does choice have to do with personalization? And we couldn't have a session on student choice without getting some student voice in there. So let's hear from our students some of the ways that they feel like choice helps personalize their learning. Oops.
When I'm given the opportunity to choose, I usually choose what is interested for me, or I like choosing what nobody else has chose, like more unique.
Well, that sometimes when I make choices, I might learn faster than I would if they told me something, because when I choose something, I might know more of it or something, and I could get into it quicker and understand it better.
Well, I think everybody learns in a different way. So when the teachers give us choices, it kind of makes you feel like you're if a teacher gives you a choice, it kind of makes you feel like you're not being forced to do the same as everyone else. Like you have your own responsibility to do it in a different way.
Through reading reading, I like to read. So reading information usually helps me to remember it, and so I can do better.
So you heard students speak to how having some choice helps them feel like they can follow their unique path, that they can be different, that they can go deeper, that they can express themselves through a modality that works for them. And before we dismiss personalization, it's just some lofty ideal that, how can we ever manage that in our classroom? Let's consider the fact that individuals know themselves the best. We feel like we all know ourselves the best. Our students feel like they know themselves the best. Or at least they're on the journey of knowing themselves well. And so what if we created some conditions for students to differentiate and take the lead in personalizing their own learning? Then the next question we'll consider is, what does choice have to do with assessment? Once students have built that knowledge in a way that's meaningful for them, what if they could demonstrate that knowledge in a way that's personally meaningful as well? So again, let's hear from students as to what this means to them.
Some people don't like it a lot, or they're not as good as good in working in presentations. Maybe you want to show, I don't know, making a video. Like, we all learn and we all express our learnings differently, and I think that's good.
The informed decision, when it comes to the topic, I always look at the standards. Like, how can I do something I'm interested in, but at the same time be able to show that I learned something during this unit?
So you heard students talk about, like, how can I express my learning differently? How I can show that by aligning my learning to meet desired outcomes, which is definitely where we aspire to have our learners be able to do. And when they can do that, we think about, what does choice have to do with engagement? How might students' attitudes change towards learning when given some choice?
When I think about choice, it's kind of like you're being more responsible for your learning because you're the one choosing how you want to learn it. So it makes me feel kind of more responsible of my work.
I actually feel more engaged, because when you're working on something that you know you can express your thoughts and learnings good, you focus and you feel more engaged by writing because you know what you're doing.
So you hear, like, increased responsibility. I have more confidence in expressing myself. And I mean, those are just two ways among many that we can put students in the driver's seat of owning their learning when we add that choice. And I see I'm glad Julie's face is up in my screen, because I saw a proud teacher face as she heard one of her students be able to verbalize that really having those choices makes a difference in their learning experience. And it's wonderful to be able to hear that from our students themselves. And so if we might be thinking, like, okay, so all this is great in theory, but middle school students, they just don't make good decisions. They don't know what's best for them. I mean, shoot, we might say the same thing for anybody under the age of 20, perhaps, sometimes of ourselves. And so is that something that we project onto our students, or is that how they feel as well? Let's think through the lens of social emotional learning.
I don't know. I guess I know myself really well. So if they give me an option to either write an essay or make a video, I'm going to choose to make a video because that's something that I really like to do.
Well, for me, it's like really good to have the students like give a choice, because the teachers can learn more about their likes and what they don't like. So, and also, like, you can learn how each student learns better their own way.
So you heard, like, I know myself well, thinking about their self-awareness. You heard teachers can know our interests, like, even that is their relationship building with their teachers. And so how will we know if students really can make those informed decisions and make good choices if they don't ever have those opportunities? And so thinking about, like, can the environment that we create be a safe place for students to practice making decisions with support, so that when they fail, because they will, they can grow from that experience, and they can develop into those responsible decision makers that we hope for. Just so you know, all of those voices were from 6th grade all the way to 12th grade. And so when we, sometimes project on, well, they don't know who themselves are or who they are as learners. That was something I heard from every single age level was, well, I know myself best. And I can make the choices that help support me in my learning. And so that's, just an encouragement to keep in our minds as we move forward. In our keynote this morning, if you were able to participate and listen to that, it was shared that, gone are the days where students are just receiving information passively. School needs to become a place where students can be aware of who they are as learners and find their voice as a learner. And they can only do this in an environment where they can leverage their voice by making choices that support their learning in meaningful ways to them. And there is not a one way to do this. There's not a right way to do this, to approach any of the 4 lenses that we just were exposed to. But today we're going to explore together, and we're going to generate ideas together, and we're going to share our findings and hope that we can build from the collective ideas of the group, that we can learn from one another, and that we can take away something that would serve us and our student population in our classroom. And so to start some of our exploration, we have the 4 strands that we just looked at of personalization, assessment, engagement, and SEL. And hopefully as you were listening, you were thinking about which of these strands resonates with me. And so have that strand in your mind, the one that resonates with you. And next, I want you to think about what modality would best serve you. Are you somebody who likes to watch something to get your input? Are you somebody who likes to read something to get your input? Are you somebody who just likes to brainstorm and let your creative juices flow with a couple of guiding prompts, but not necessarily something to, shape your thinking? You want to make your thoughts yourself. So think about your modality. We're going to spend some time in a small breakout rooms, exploring whichever path that you would like to choose, whichever strand through whichever modality you would like to. You'll receive this choice board when you click on your preferred choice. It will take you to a page that looks similar to this. You'll spend some time connecting with whomever is in your room. Please designate a timekeeper to help hold yourselves accountable to the time. Will take about 20 minutes. And then there will either be what you'll watch, read, or jump into discussing and brainstorming. There are some guiding questions for you to follow, and then would ask you to spend some time thinking about kind of what are your main takeaways as a group, and consolidate those into a sentence or 2 that we can come back and share out as a group. So before the time gets up in your breakout room, if you'll designate a speaker for your group so that we have somebody who's willing to share out when that time is called. So not knowing at all how many people to expect, the breakout rooms will come up and you'll have a choice as to which breakout room you would like to participate in. There's 2 for each of these categories. So for example, if you're personalization, I want to watch something, there's breakout room number 1, and it says 1 personalization watch. And there's breakout number 2 that says 2 personalization watch. And actually, I think I can probably get rid of the room number 2. And so there's just 1 for each. Let's do that. That might be a little bit easier. So you'll have a choice of personalization watch, personalization read, personalization brainstorm. And you can click on whichever room would best serve you. Welcome back. And I enjoyed listening to little snippets of your conversation, and I know that we'll all benefit from hearing some of your main takeaways from talking with your groups. And so I'll put it so we can all see each other on the screen. And we have a small enough group that we can actually share out. And so if somebody from the personalization group that watched a video would like to share your main takeaway, please feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hello. So we were in breakout room number 1, and we watched this video about learning enable student voice and choice throughout projects. And they, on this specific video, they were recreating like the Shark Tank TV show, but using teachers with math teachers using it to make their students accountable of their own projects. And so they had this, the teachers were like as if in Shark Tank, they were the judges and they were going to invest in their product. And so what we come up with, Ilda and I, who was my partner, we came up that like the best quote that we can think of this video was trying to create for students real life projects that are relevant and engaging for them. And so as there were some statistics shared at the end of the video, which I don't recall well, but they were all positive about students finally be able to graduate from high school compared to other years where they have dropouts and very few students graduated. And because of this new way of teaching, they had like positive and success among their students while giving them the opportunity to engage and create their own product and try to sell it to their teachers. And also there were some other people like invited like to see how they presented their projects. What we talked a while ago, Ilda and I, that right now it's a little bit more difficult like online, but we can make a switch as for students recording themselves and then one of them recording on one single video all their interactions and then sharing to other students. Probably we could invite other teachers to the Zoom meeting or to the Google link. So whenever they're presenting, no? And something like that.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, Nora. And it sounds like your connection with personalization in dealing with real life is a connection that I heard other groups talking about as well as going around. Great, thanks. So we'll do our 1 to 2 sentence takeaway with the group number 7, the assessment. What does it have to do with assessment? Those who are watching the video.
Okay, so we had some really good discussions in our group, just kind of about assessment and what it has looked like in the past and what we want it to look like. And we kind of came up with, we had talked about how we were all on board with this. Like we think it's a great idea, but there are times where there's pushback, and that pushback could come from teachers. It could come from students and parents. It could come from the administration because maybe we're working in a school where they're not ready for, the systems in place are not necessarily ready for this. But in the end, we all want our students, as teachers, we all want our students to be critical thinkers. We want them to feel empowered, and we, of course, want them to learn. And so we were all on board with this, and that's kind of just what we were talking about.
I like that idea of empowerment. Thank you. The group that was talking about assessment, but had done some readings.
Hi, everyone. So we talked a lot about age. So I was in a group with Sarah, who teaches grade 12, and Mayra, who teaches grade 5. And I was talking about it in the context of grade 10. So we were talking about when you give students choices for assessment, what does that look like in different ages? And so if you're able to get, how do you get students who are so young in grade 5 to be able to make choices? And then, if you do and you can do that successfully, then we also talked about the grade 12 level. How do we know that when they get to college, that those assessments will also allow them choice? Or is it just going to be back to traditional, essay writing? And so we just talked about what this looks like along different ages in student development.
It's interesting to think about the educational system, and then also like, how do we scaffold that, and how can we, as like just a nuclear school system, build students up in that regard so they don't get to 12th grade and we feel like we're starting to teach them those skills from scratch. So it's a really good and interesting thought systemically. Thank you. The SEL group that had done some readings. I think you're in number 21.
Marcel and me were reading about making these choices about learning, areas of focusing, what to read, and homework problems. What we were discussing is that this making of choices is going to empower the students and also increase their self-believing. And this is important because they are going to find also meaningful learning in this way. So I think this is really interesting because covers a lot of skills that we are looking in what I teach, that is history, for example. No, yes, this is really interesting for me.
That's great. Thank you for sharing just that making it meaningful and how they can express themselves. And finally, our SEL group that was in a brainstorming session, and I think some of our engagement members joined into that one as well.
We definitely spoke to with the SEL piece, how helpful it is when we can share with students what's coming up so they can take on that role of planning and prioritizing and making those informed choices. And then also looking at what's coming up and when they're actually working on what they're supposed to be working on, collecting evidence so that they can really reflect on what are my next steps. So what practice do I need? How do I maybe go in and ask for more help if I need help? How do I a lot of that, like the regulation of like, I'm noticing that this is going on. So what do my next steps need to be?
Mm-hmm. That idea of being able to like track and verbalize and speak to their learning came up in a couple of different groups. One of the conversations that I caught the tail end of was like students justifying why they feel like they are at the place that they are in their learning. And even if they have different choices and ways that they can express that is so valuable. So it sounds like we just got snippets of some fantastic conversations. Thank you so much for engaging in those conversations and for sharing with our group. You may have shared already with your group, but just to kind of bring us back to the collective learning that we can have together. As a final thought, just think about what is this tool or a strategy that you have used, or perhaps one that you heard of today that you want to use in your classroom to provide and promote choice for your students. And I'm going to give you about a minute or two to just quietly reflect on that question and think about it. I want you to type we're going to do a waterfall chat. So type your answer in the chat, your response, but do not press send or enter or whatever you need to actually add it to the chat. So keep it in your chat. Do not press send. We'll take about a minute of think time, and then I'll say go and everybody can press send at the same time so we see all of the answers populate at once. And we make sure that we are sharing our own thoughts and not piggybacking on anybody else's yet. So 1 minute of just quiet think and put your response in the chat without pressing send, please. And as we get a couple of ideas of additional strategies and tools, just take a moment to look at, review them, and find one that resonates with you, whether it's an idea that it sparks, so a question that it might bring to mind, something that you want to build upon as you think about your action steps for moving forward this week. And if you kind of hover over the one that resonates with you, you'll see 3 little dots to the side. If you click on that, it'll let you copy the response. And then you can type it in or paste it in your chat, put a dash, and just share why that resonates with you, or what it prompts you to think about as you move into the upcoming week or think about choice for your own students. And you can just press enter and add that to the chat whenever you've captured your thoughts. There's some fantastic ideas in the chat, and I hope that, you know, whatever you chose that resonated with you, or something from your group conversation sparks your interest to think about, you know, what's something that I can do, maybe even Monday, to further incorporate choice into my classroom. And so as you're just kind of thinking about and reflecting on before you close down that action step, just keep in mind that with all things, as in the art of teaching, intentionality is key. And choice is most powerful when used with purpose. And so as we're moving towards incorporating that, like what is our goal, and how can choice be leveraged to take our students down a path towards that goal? So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your time and your thoughts and sharing all of your great ideas. The presentation you have in on the Live Curious site, so feel free to continue to use that and all of the tools. There's some other readings and kind of thought-provoking questions on some of the other slides if you'd like to explore one of the other lenses as you move forward in your craft. So thank you so much for being the great educators you are. Thank you for being here, and enjoy the rest of your day.